Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Light Magazine, and today you join us in the BMW M2 Competition. Now I want to do something a little bit different with this. A lot of people have reviewed this car as such, and a lot of journalists have looked at it objectively. How fast is it in a straight line? How well does it go around the corner? So on and so forth. But I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to talk about how this car makes me feel. How would it make you feel as a potential owner? And I wanted to focus on some of the major touch points of this car. There will be an in-depth review, and we'll do that for the next issue of the magazine. But we thought for this YouTube video, we'll just talk about the way it makes us feel, because sometimes I think in and amongst good journalism, sometimes we tend to forget about what impact a car has on us emotionally. And what a great place to start the BMW M2 Competition. It's a cracking thing. But before we get started, let's have a little recap, shall we? The M2 Competition uses a detuned version of BMW's S55 engine, which is also found in the bigger M3 and M4. The twin-turbo 3-litre straight-six produces outputs of 404 brake horsepower and 406 foot-pounds, which are sent to the rear wheels via a 7-speed DCT gearbox. It will cover the sprint to 62 miles an hour in just 4.2 seconds, and the 6-speed manual option sees that time increase to 4.4 seconds. Kudos to BMW for offering a stick and 3 pedals in 2019. The engine isn't the only thing borrowed from the bigger M cars. The M2 uses the M3 and M4's front and rear suspension assemblies and carbon fibre strut brace to help it handle like a proper M car, and it also comes with an electronically controlled locking differential. The recipe here is a simple one that's aimed squarely at people who love to drive, and that focus is evident from the moment you set foot in the car. Right, so the cabin. And I know the interior isn't really talking about how I feel about the car, but it does have a rather large bearing on how I overall feel about the car. So bear with me a second. The first thing you notice when you get into this car is that the driving position is spot on. The seating position's nice and low, the steering has plenty of adjustment. You can really just pick your driving position and you're away. Secondly, the interior architecture, the way everything's laid out and designed. There's not really much here to distract you from the job of driving, and I really like that, because arguably you buy an M2 Competition because you want to drive it, because you want to have some fun. And you get into so many modern cars now, and yes, there's lots of wonderful technology, and some manufacturers do a better job than others in terms of how they package it and present it. But in here, you just get in, you drive the car, and there isn't much to distract you from doing that. And so I think that the interior is spot on, and in fact it has a big bearing on how you feel about the car, because as I said, you can get in and you can concentrate on driving, and driving is what this car is all about. You're never short on options in the M2 Competition. Steering weight and throttle response can be individually adjusted to suit, and different configurations can be saved using the M1 and M2 buttons, so you can default to your favourite setup without having to readjust everything all over. Handy when you want to hop in and go for a B-road blast. So how does this M2 Competition make you feel when you find a decent back road like this one and you decide to go for, shall we say, a spirited drive? Well, it just feels so alive. It feels just so energetic. It just asks you to get on with it and just grab it by the scruff of the neck. And you know what, when you do that, this car communicates with you so well. I mean, let's take the chassis, for example. We found somewhere yesterday away from the public road, I'm hastened to add, where we could go and we could do a few slidey shots with it. And you know what, when it lets go, the balance is unbelievable. You can literally just pick your angle and you're away. And there's a bit of roll in the chassis, but that's fine, because it's communicating with you. It's telling you how much grip you've got and how hard you're pushing it as you go through the corners. The gearbox as well. Okay, for ultimate engagement, you'll always want to go for a manual, but that's not to say that you can't build a relationship with this 7-speed DCT gearbox, because you know what? Once you really ramp this thing up, the shift times are excellent. You pull a paddle and you've got a new gear, and again, because it happens so quickly, you feel like you have this sense of connection with the car. The steering as well. The EPAS system, okay, it's an EPAS system, but as far as they go, there's a nice amount of feel through the wheel, and you always know what the front wheels are up to as well. And what about this suspension? Well, you can't, there's no adaptive damping, you can't individually adjust anything, but what I would say is that it walks a really nice line between being nice and firm and sporty, and being able to understand what the road beneath you is doing, and actually not being too bumpy for everyday use. It's still quite nice and compliant on the public road, and it does smooth out over some of the bigger bumps and undulations. So yeah, it does strike a really, really nice balance. No, this is a cracking car to drive, and you just get this sense that it wants to talk to you, it wants to communicate with you the entire time you're up it, whether that be 7, 8, 9, 10 tenths. It does, it has a conversation with you, it lets you know what's going on underneath you, and for it to be a proper driver's car, of course it needs to be able to do that. So my final thoughts on this BMW M2 Competition. Well, I think you can tell I really, really like it. And I'll tell you why. You really get this great sense that it's been designed for people who love to drive. And it's clearly been designed by people who love to drive themselves, and that's important. I think sometimes when manufacturers build performance cars, sometimes they pay too much attention to how quickly it can, I don't know, go around the Nürburgring, or you know, how quick a lap time you can get out of it. And sometimes people just forget about genuine fun, really. And this is what this car offers, genuine, good, quality fun. It's so friendly when it breaks traction. As I said before, you really can just pick your angle, and you know, the car will go, you get so adjustable on the throttle, you know. And it's a proper driver's car, and I absolutely love it. So, well done BMW, it's a cracker. I'll happily admit I want one, and I want it quite badly. So there we go. I love it. That's my final thoughts on the BMW M2 Competition. If you want one, go and buy it. You won't regret it.